Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on September 3rd, 2024. This meeting included comments and discussion about an allocation of city funds to the University of Michigan Health System, new bylaws for the City Planning Commission in order to lower the standard for approval, a new transit corridor zoning district on Washtenaw and East Stadium, exceptions to the regulation of gas-powered leaf blowers, fewer restrictions for the transit corridor zoning district, more allowable height and less stormwater review for new developments, reduced regulation of home businesses in residential neighborhoods, and a new city flag. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on September 3rd, 2024. All items were approved. There was one split vote on an ordinance amendment to permit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers to safely conduct prescribed burns. All other agenda items were approved unanimously. You can find this voting chart and more information about this meeting at A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. The meeting included a presentation from Stephanie Carter, Chair of the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, or ICPOC.
As you know, complaints come in either through the police department or through ICPOC, and we can take no action or review until after the police have finished theirs. Our complaint review is completed for 2021, 22, and 23. With regard to 2024, we've had 20 complaints so far this year. I thought it was significant that a number of those complaints had to do with the protests on the university campus. There was questions as to whether the Ann Arbor police were involved, and if so, was taxpayer money being used for that purpose? And so we were, with the help of the department, able to respond that we did not take part in the arrests and so forth at that time.
A new city flag was unveiled, along with its designer, Ann Arbor resident Dennis Schurt.
I really love this town and our community, and I'm proud to be from here, and I'm just really grateful and honored to have had the opportunity to make the next flag to represent our city.
After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for about 45 minutes. 2 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 1 person spoke to topics on the agenda. The consent agenda this week included 20 items and expenditures of nearly $11 million. 1 item was pulled for discussion. The rest of the consent agenda was approved unanimously. Council discussed an allocation of marijuana excise tax funds to the University of Michigan Health Systems. The money will supplement an existing program at the U of M with additional staffing and supplies related to opioid addiction prevention and treatment services. This allocation of marijuana excise tax funds was included in the annual budget for fiscal year 2025, along with an extra $1 million for Council to spend however it liked. Earlier this year, Councilmember Cornell questioned the expense, wondering why the city would be offering money to support an organization with a much larger budget and more resources. This week, City Administrator Milton Dohoney explained the program that city funds will support.
A number of the patients that we're referring to be helped with this particular item are people that come into the hospital through the emergency room. They need various types of medication and kits when they go home. And today, or prior to the funding, that did not exist. And so we're paying for the creation and the stocking of those medications that they need to help them stay off once they leave the confines of the hospital proper.
The funding was approved unanimously. Council then considered amendments to the bylaws of the City Planning Commission. Amendments will lower the threshold for approval at the Planning Commission, reducing it from 6 votes to 5 votes. In a memo, city staff explained that conflicts of interest from members of the Planning Commission have prompted occasional recusals. Council discussed the amendments for about 2 minutes.
I just want to remind everyone that the major change here is to lower the minimum vote threshold required to send ordinances or zoning decisions forward to council with City Planning Commission approval. They are an all-volunteer board. They are not paid for their service. They all have full-time jobs. They have care responsibilities for children and aging relatives. And so an absence or 2, plus a recusal or 2, can mean that a project gets a unanimous vote that falls short of what is the current 6-vote threshold, and then it is brought forward to council as a unanimous yes that is a technical fail. That's just incoherent.
In the last 2.5 years, this scenario has happened only twice, each time when current Planning Commission Chair Wan-Woo Lee had to recuse himself because his employer is Oxford Companies. In April 2023, the City Planning Commission considered expanding permissible uses in the Transit Corridor Zoning District. Commissioner Lee recused himself due to his employer's property interests in that district. His recusal and other absences meant that a unanimous vote did not reach the standard of 6 votes for approval. In June 2023, the City Planning Commission considered a direct request from Oxford Companies for amendments that would permit more activities in mixed-use zoning districts. Again, Commissioner Lee's recusal plus absences meant that a unanimous vote did not reach the standard of 6 votes for approval. Council unanimously approved changes to the bylaws of the Planning Commission, lowering the standard of approval for land use decisions. Council considered the rezoning of 59 parcels at Washtenaw and East Stadium Boulevard to Transit Corridor District. The rezoning would apply to the north side of Washtenaw Avenue between US 23 and Glenwood Road, the south side of Washtenaw Avenue between US 23 and Pittsfield Boulevard, and between South Huron Parkway and Platte Road would also be rezoned. In the East Stadium Boulevard area, parcels generally between Washtenaw Avenue and St. Francis Boulevard will be rezoned. At a public hearing earlier in the meeting, commenters spoke to the issue.
My name is Blair Gertis. I live at 3480 Wooddale Court in the Wood Creek Homeowners Association. I'm the president of the association. I'm here to just reiterate that we've advocated for appropriate development in the area, and particularly of the property that's adjacent to both our neighborhood, Wood Creek, and Arborland for over 2 decades. And unfortunately, I don't think the TC1 zoning is appropriate. Washtenaw continues to be, in our particular segment, extremely congested, overly congested. I don't believe, and our neighbors don't believe, that higher density development is going to make the situation better, and whether it's more vehicles or more pedestrians or more buses, it's going to make it worse.
I would love to see some more neighbors here and more pedestrians and cyclists. So looking forward to this change.
I would just like to support this as well. I think this is great seeing this come forward.
Council discussed the rezoning for about 15 minutes.
This makes it easier to convert shopping centers or office complexes into mixed-use buildings, and we want that. We want not to rip everything down, but we want to be able to convert and rebuild.
You know, I'm excited about what this means for the future of our community, for making this area more livable and walkable and friendly to the residents who live here.
You know, the question that I would pose back to the community members who are concerned about this is, what does the do-nothing approach look like? It certainly doesn't look like less congestion.
I would hope that we can envision a Westgate over on Washtenaw with housing above it, where you're walking to local businesses, frequenting local businesses, and using transit.
The rezoning was approved unanimously. Council considered amendments to a city ordinance restricting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Amendments will permit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers by the City Parks Department and others facilitating prescribed burns. City staff explained the amendment.
NAP staff did some testing with the electric leaf blowers and made the determination that they were not able to do the job in a manner that was consistent with what they believed to be the safest practices, nor in a manner that allowed them to conduct and burn enough area to keep up with what is the minimal demands to make the program effective.
We would stand to gain significant ecological benefits by burning up to 200 acres a year, and we currently struggle to reach the 100-acre threshold with our current equipment. And more specifically, the electric blowers, 2 models that were tested by field staff determined that they were 2 to 3 times less efficient. We use blowers to blow a burn break, which is a break in the available fuel or the leaf litter on the ground, the debris that is burned and carries the burn throughout the unit. It is paramount to have a break around the burn unit so that the burn does not spread beyond that break. It takes currently hours, depending on the size of the unit, but we would stand to add even more hours, double or triple the amount of time necessary to burn that same unit or to blow a break in that same unit if we switch under current technologies. We wrote the ordinance amendment to include any private contractors that were securing the necessary burn permits with the fire department to allow for the use of the gas blowers for similar safety reasons.
Council briefly discussed it.
And I can imagine the need for having gas-powered blowers there for sort of safety reasons. From the efficiency standpoint is where I'm struggling with it, because we've heard that efficiency argument from folks in the private sector as well.
I'm willing to support this because this is, for the ecological benefit. This isn't kind of cleaning up or maintenance of private property to get leaves or grass clippings off, but rather the actual ecological benefit and restoration that comes with a controlled burn.
I disagree that this is an exception for the city. I think this is an exception for a use, and we have other exceptions in here already, like golf courses.
In a split vote, with Council members Briggs and Cornell in opposition, the amendments were approved at first reading. At a future meeting, they will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council then considered ordinance amendments that will change multiple standards in the Transit Corridor zoning district. This week's proposed amendments were requested by developers Crawford Hoying and Oxford Companies. The amendments remove multiple guidelines in the Transit Corridor district, eliminating previous limits on curb cuts, eliminating minimum building frontage, eliminating guidelines for the placement of housing in close proximity to signaled intersections, eliminating a requirement that larger parcels be divided into smaller blocks, and eliminating guidelines for the location of off-street parking and parking structures. After a brief introduction, the changes were approved at first reading. At a future meeting, these amendments will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council then considered amendments to the zoning code to permit more height and eliminate review of stormwater management for new developments. If approved, the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commission will not review stormwater management for new developments except for sites located on county drains within their jurisdiction. Council briefly discussed the amendments.
There are many components here, and I'm only going to talk about one of them. So there are a number of things that increase the height of a building without providing additional inhabitable space, such as elevators, escalators, and stairwells. So the idea here is that buildings in mixed-use, non-residential, and special-purpose zoning districts will be allowed an additional 12 feet to accommodate these commonplace necessary elements. And those 12 feet will not count against the calculation of building density, and they do not need to go to the ZBA, and they do not need to seek any other variation that is time-consuming and raises the expense of a project.
I have had personal conversations with architects and developers who have proposed projects in my ward, in the 4th Ward, who have found that height exception to be onerous to the point where a project doesn't even pencil out if they can't get the exception.
The amendments were approved unanimously at first reading. At a future meeting, they will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council then considered a resolution directing the Planning Commission to increase flexibility for people running businesses out of their homes in residential areas. This resolution was on the agenda of the council meeting on August 19th, but postponed in order to incorporate changes. This part of the city code was most recently amended in 2021. The amendments of 2021 clarified standards for home businesses, allowing activities that are incidental and secondary to the residential use, setting maximum floor area, maximum numbers of customer visits per day, and a maximum number of non-resident employees. This week's resolution directs the Planning Commission to revisit these guidelines. The resolution was amended in order to remove reference to engaging the community and remove the directive to accelerate changes ahead of the comprehensive land use plan. Council discussed the resolution for about 15 minutes.
I think it really points to how I I came to this in an economic development sensibility and responding to folks who have home businesses and who felt like there could be a little bit more flexibility in the changes that we made in our ordinances for home occupied businesses in the past 2 years. And I love the idea that we, our community, can help encourage small businesses.
This is something that my neighbors have been asking for since I first ran for council, and I'm really delighted to be bringing this forward tonight.
I just want to thank Councilmember Song and on the work that she did on this.
It's essential. We talk a lot about affordable housing, but we don't spend a lot of time thinking about solutions or talking about solutions for affordable retail. In terms of some of the things that are struck out, aspects around, calling out additional community engagement. One of the things that we do really well in the city is have community engagement built into our processes already. And so we'll have public hearings at the Planning Commission and City Council, and we've gotten input.
I can't wait to see what Ward 5 residents come up with to make our neighborhood a little more business friendly too.
The resolution directing the Planning Commission to reduce regulation of home businesses in residential neighborhoods was approved unanimously. After brief introductions, City Council unanimously approved a new flag for the City of Ann Arbor and approved moving the voting location for a precinct in Ward 2. The meeting adjourned before 9 p.m. with no further public comment. For more details about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
And everyone also knows that a great city deserves a great flag.
I think all of us know when you have a good city flag.
It was exciting to see our new flag today.
Great cities have great flags.
I think all of us were smiling today when that flag was unveiled.
If we're thinking about entrepreneurs and potential businesses, this might be the starting point with the new flag.
Great cities should have a great flag, and we do now.